while I was in Germany, we cut about 7 songs. And because he was working on the Thriller record, he loved one of my songs. And he's like, I'm playing this to Michael and Quincy. So they send the song, Michael loves it, Quincy loves it. And at this time, I think they were 9 songs into the record. So they record the song, and it's going great, and, you know, I'm as happy as a pig in shit. And, you know, I think I've arrived and that. And he's like, we've cut it. And I'm like, great. So I go back to London. I'm sitting at home, and I'm feeling myself, you know, I'm like, oh, yeah, I'm on Michael Jackson's record, yeah. I get a call about 2 weeks later saying, unfortunately, the record company want the album to be 10 tracks, not 11 tracks. And because your track was last in, it's got to be first off. So, but you know what? No, I wasn't worried about it. Because, you know, when you're young, you're stupid. You don't really care. You're just happy to be in the fight, you know? And 2 weeks later, I'm sitting at home, a little depressed, you know, because the single's flying up the charts and the album's, you know, getting ready to, you know, explode. And I get a call from Rod, and he's in Westlake Studios, and he puts the phone out into the studio, and he says, listen to this. And I listen, and it's Stevie Wonder putting his harmonica solo on the same track that has just been cut by Manhattan Transfer.
Spice of Life.
Which turned out to be the Spice of Life. And so, you know, one huge door closes, but another medium-sized one opens.
Right,
so,
right.
But, you know, you got, you know, your blessings come in all different guises. You just can't, you know, don't be mad at them, you know.
Now, that Spice of Life track ended up being one of the biggest songs that Manhattan Transfer
It was the biggest
recorded.
song that Manhattan Transfer ever had. It's biggest single.
Okay, but financially, if your song...
I'm not telling you how much money I made.
No, we're talking
Cheeky
about...
bugger.
Well, we're talking about this. We're talking about financially in terms of what it would have meant for you to get that one song on Michael Jackson's Thriller album.
I would not... Oh, me thingy's dead. I would have been flying my own jet here to see you instead of flying Virgin. That's the truth of that, how much money that album made.
Right,
I mean, it's just historic, you know?
Right. You see, and those are the kind of things that are, I feel like a lot of up-and-coming songwriters really need to know. Just in terms of placement, just in terms of the ramifications of publishing, licensing, those types of deals. Were you fully aware of the financial ramifications at that time?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not. I mean, as a kid, I just so wanted to be a writer and a producer that, you know, I just didn't have time for the legalese, if you like. Okay. But I had great people. I had a great manager, Brian Freshwater, who really protected me, really looked out for me. But the other thing that I think kind of affords you a bit of luxury is, you know, if you're really good and the quality of what you're doing, people will step to you the right way. You know, and that's always been, you know, my case. People always, you know, they've always told me that you're worth the money. Whatever we got to pay, you're worth the money. And if you can, you know, build that from the beginning, that's not such a shabby thing, you know.
So you basically established yourself as a business person. You knew what your worth was as a songwriter. Now Manhattan Transfer is recording your song. Michael Jackson could have recorded your song. Where do you go from there? What's the next thing for you after the Manhattan Transfer song is cut and released?
I was producing... I was producing an artist called Jackie Graham in England. It was my first production. And we had something like 3 top 10 records in a row. And then I got a call from David Bowie and asked me to come and produce his album, which I think I'd just turned 21 at that point. Okay. And he's like, will you fly out to Switzerland, come to my house for dinner, and we'll talk about making an album. And he'd just done Let's Dance, so I'm like, shit, how am I going to follow that up?
Yeah, he was hot at the time, right. It's a hot track. Yeah. So 21 years of age. So at this point, it seems to me like there's this progression. You're building your track record. You're getting your credentials. Looking back on things in hindsight, was there any area of the business that you felt you wish you knew more about that could have perhaps maybe maximize the opportunities you had?
Tough question. Well, you know, I was very fortunate because I had guys watching me back. Rod was watching me back. Brian was watching my back. I had a great lawyer, had a great accountant. So, you know, after a while I began to, you know, get really wise and say, listen, you can't trust anybody to just be, you know, you can't just trust anybody. You've got to know what's going on in your life.
Right.
You can't just let let him handle it or let her handle it. That's bollocks, you know. You've got to be aware of what you're doing, why you're doing it, how much you're going to get paid, what's the, you know, the consequences of doing this, making this decision or making that decision. You got to know, because at some point you've got to stand up on your own 2 feet and be responsible for the decisions that ultimately you have to make.
Right. And see, the reason why I want to hark upon this a little bit is because we all know the horror stories of the people who don't pay attention. And you got in at 14. You're 21 years of age having dinner with Bowie. That's kind of unusual. You know, so now with all the people who are in our audience who are young and they are aspiring to get their songs cut and placed on somebody's album, CD project, what would you tell them that they should really be aware of in that whole process? Publishing, licensing, management, song splits.
Great song. Everything starts with a great song. If you haven't got a great song, song splits don't mean a shit. Nobody's going to want to cut it. None of that means anything if you're concentrating on that stuff.